Drew Yorke Show, live from the ISO radio space in beautiful Toronto, Ontario. A couple housekeeping things first. Drew Yorke Show is now on Spotify, so you can go follow the Drew Yorke Show on Spotify. You can also follow the Drew Yorke Show on SoundCloud, and it'll be coming soon to Apple Music and to Alexa, so you can look out for that. My special guest today is a fellow writer, storyteller, communicator of sorts. He's a publicist. He's a multifaceted, storyteller of sorts. Been like a great mentor to me, so it's a really good honor to have you today. Dalton, please come sit down.
What's going on, man? Hey,
thanks for doing this.
Yeah, anytime, Drew.
I usually start these things by asking, because a lot of this stuff usually has to do with music. How did music become a part of your life? Do you remember like the earliest memory?
Yeah, my earliest memory of music. Good question. I mean, I grew up in this neighborhood in Toronto that's sort of affectionately referred to as Little Jamaica. So my parents came to Toronto from Jamaica in the late 60s. And my father now, he was an avid record collector. So what he used to do is he used to spend, your paychecks, you spend it, people spend it on different things, you know what I mean? Like gear, get dripped out. Yeah. You spend on records. So on Eglinton to this day, we talk about vinyl culture. You want to buy records. You want to buy 45s vinyl on Eglinton Avenue West, right? They call it Little Jamaica, Little Caribbean, right at Eglinton and Marley, Eglinton and Allen Expressway, Eglinton West Subway Station, those who take public transport. He used to spend, a lot of his money, his paycheck on records. So me, I'm a product of the reason why when people talk to me, I can reference music from 60s, 70s, straight through to 2019, 20 beyond or whatever is, I'm like a record store kid. You know what I mean? I hung out at record stores for a lot of my, prepubescent years. And my father was just like stacking, crates of records, bro. So when people, if you're sampling some shit or replaying some shit, interpolating some stuff, it's stuff I probably would have heard. It's in my brain, man. It's like, there's like a, what do they say? The hard drive here is crazy records, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what it is growing up with the father of, or the son of Jamaican immigrants who were like record collectors. So a lot of reggae, you know what I mean? Ska, calypso.
So you had like a sound.
Country and Western. You listen to country
really?
and Western, Drew Yorke?
No.
Like Lil Nas X, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe.
Okay, maybe.
I do now.
Okay. Jamaicans love country music. So people can ask me, Loretta Lynn, you know what I mean? Charlie Pride. I mess with country and Western because in Jamaica, a lot of people don't know this. In Jamaica, country and Western is huge. Country and Western music is huge. It's not just reggae and dancehall and mento and ska music, right? Country and Western is huge. Okay, so my mother, she had crates of country and Western music. So I know all that too, which is weird, right?
What did your parents do?
Yeah, they were just general laborers, working at factory workers, And then my mother moved up the ranks. This company called Lander Company that went under. It's like a cosmetics company. So I was that guy in school in Toronto, when as far as they make skin cream and Vaseline and just oils, and I was the guy that smelled great. Never a dry skin ever, a dry a day of dry skin that's virtually impossible in my household because my mother worked at a cosmetics company, dude.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I remember whenever I first got introduced to you or I'm familiar with you, I remember reading online that you had written for these legendary rap magazines. You'd written for The Source and you'd done some writing for Vibe magazine.
Yes.
How did that even happen? Because those are American publications, are they not? Was that an opportunity from Toronto that you got, or do you have to go to the States to find that opportunity?
Yeah, totally. Well, here's the thing. There's sort of a multi-pronged. How I got to The Source, or The Source got to me, is one of the executive editors of The Source, who was based in Oakland, California. He used to come out to Toronto. He was dating someone, who's here to this day. I won't name names, but he was dating someone, and he was sort of hanging out in Toronto. And I was an editor of a magazine called Word Magazine. Now, Word Magazine,
right?
Yeah, about black music, art, culture, dance, theater, lots of music, And
was that Toronto based?
Yeah, it was Toronto based. Yeah. And a lot of people that left there went on to do some great things, at the CBC and just media in the U.S. So anyways, he ran into me through a friend who worked at City TV, and he was just like, yeah, I'm from Oakland, and I'm sort of kicking around here because I'm dating someone who works in television here, a very high-profile broadcaster. and wanted some writing opportunities, and I'm working at this, this little rag. The budgets are tiny, this grocery money, but he just wanted to keep his writing chops going, But he's also like an editor at the Source, right? Which is kind of crazy. So so we just kept this dialogue happening, and he saw that I was writing some stuff that he actually liked, and he was just like, when he went back, he hit me up, and he's just like, the first story I ever wrote for the Source was about actually about white rappers, okay? White rappers. That's sort of like the history of white rappers.
Do you know what year that would have been?
Holy jeez, man. That's dating me. Like, this is like 90s, late 90s? It's late 90s. I don't know what date I mean, but it's like, this is when like the white rapper Eminem, you know what I mean? He's exploding. You had Third Base. You had like, obviously Vanilla Ice and all that stuff, right?
What was your thesis? What was the point that you were making?
Yeah. Well, he noticed that I always, I wrote a lot about, issues around class and race. Some gender, like I write issues-oriented things, things that tied to issues. And Toronto is the most multicultural city on the planet, so that type of stuff bleeds through my work. So if people want to talk about what's happening, different parts around the globe, 7 continents, I try to stay pretty well versed, right? That's actually what informed my book, Hip Hop World, is basically going out to Europe and Latin America and seeing hip hop scenes there and sort of documenting it, right? So he sort of looked at me as this guy who's just like, yeah, you're in Canada, the Great White North, like literally the Great White North, because he's from Oakland, you know what I mean?
His perception is so different of Toronto.
It's super different. He's just like, wow, there's like, white people, Asian, South Asian, Indigenous, Black, like you're all hanging out together. He's just like, this is interesting. So he threw that on my table. He goes, yeah, can you handle this? I'm like, of course I can handle this, bro. Are you kidding me? And so, and it was a huge story. It, when we talk about journalism back then, this is an interesting I'll drop for you, is you made a lot of money when print publications were around, like magazines. So I was getting paid, starting...
Advertising budgets would have been big for
huge.
Magazines. The companies would have been putting a lot of money behind getting their images put in beside a cover story in a magazine.
Oh, they were huge. No, they were huge. And you looked at magazines of yesteryear, and there's these thick things, a couple hundred pages filled with ads that are worth like $20,000, $30,000 a pop. So we got paid it's like $1 a word I started out, and then went up to $1.40 a word. So you do the math. If I write a story that's 1,200 words times $1.40 a word, you see what I'm saying? So you're getting checks a couple $1,000s. That's how. So when people said, I freelance back then, this is late 90s going into kind of I'd say mid 2000s, 2006, 2007. You can pay your bills comfortably, right? Yeah, you make a couple $1,000s just writing one story. Okay. Now you spread that around. Let's say at the time too, I was writing for Now Magazine. I wrote for Now Magazine for many years. A lot of the shit is in the archives, and so you couple that some regular stuff with the Source, a couple pieces with Now, some other freelancey things, right? You're making money, right? So that's why I'm always for just paying creators of artists, even like yourself. I'm big on that. Sometimes I'll see you, I'll be like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, how do you guys make it work? Is there some way I can assist you and your generation? Because you're always grinding. You're you're putting in the work. You know what I mean? That's what I like about you. Whereas people call me asking for just handouts and they haven't put in the work. We used to call it paying dues, like you're doing stuff. You're out there creating culture, man, or you're documenting culture, not asking for me for a hand. Like, those are the people I mess with. You know what I mean? Those people I F with. But that's what it was. Yeah. So things like that, Source, you're making good money. And also Vibe magazine as well. There was a journalist named Elizabeth who was from here, and she had moved to the States, New York. Elizabeth Mendez-Berry. She's a good friend of mine, and she got a post at Vibe. She was working at Amazon.com, right? I used to write for Amazon.com. They used to pay you to review records and stuff, right? So when you go to Amazon.com and you see all these reviews of everything.
Really?
Yeah. She used to make money reviewing albums, right? So if you plug my name in the archives, I reviewed 1,000, because and it was I don't know how much was it, $30-$40 a record or something like that, U.S. currency.
Wow.
And so you just review a bunch of records, make $300, whatever. So she's working there, and then she got a job at Vibe as a executive editor. And so she was just like, Dalton, you're one of my, I like your journalism, so let's do some work. And I'm like, let's do it. That was it. You want some? Oh, can I tell you some quick Source stories?
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. So with the Source now too is some artists like old school like Nelly. From St. Louis, so the first story anybody read about Nelly, I'm the guy that wrote it, right? If you look at the old issues.
Oh, really?
Jay Dilla, right? A lot of people appreciate his production expertise. First story, me.
Were those interviews, or were those just you writing about the...
Straight interviews, yeah. Straight interviews.
Wow.
It was the first time anybody. Jay Dilla, he was called JD at the time. He wasn't even Jay Dilla, but he had produced for Farside. Janet Jackson, he had a remix there, and also, Slum Village, obviously. So I have a lot of weird stories like that. The first interview that you'd have seen of it, a lot of rappers, it was like me. But people didn't know that I was from Toronto, though.
Would those have been phone interviews?
In person.
So was the magazine helping you to travel at that point? Or was
absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So
Absolutely.
A different time, I guess.
Different
right?
times. Oh, they fly you out. So when you're doing a story, Nelly, right? Yeah, they flew me to St. Louis.
Oh, my God.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, Detroit flew me to Detroit.
Yeah.
Right? And when I did Dwelle, the Vibe magazine, Dwelle is another, R&B. He's done stuff with Kanye West. Yeah, they fly you to Detroit.
That's unbelievable.
And they cover your costs, right? Hotel, ground transport, and also flights. So that's how they did it back then. That's how much money they had.
Yeah.
They fly you everywhere. That's where I got my first. Yeah.
Crazy thing about now, because no one would ever consider flying anybody to really interview anybody.
Yeah.
Have you seen the New York Times does those video pieces where they do interviews over FaceTime?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
They'll they get all the people that made what's it called? The Sheck West song. I can't remember. Mo Bamba. So if they get all the people that made Mo Bamba on a separate FaceTimes, and they just put all the video footage together.
Yes, that's right.
Nobody's left their living room to do anything. You get the same content. You get the same story.
Yeah. And this is before the advent pre-social media, but I have crazy stories there too. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah, they flew you out. Listen, Drew. I haven't flown out to and we call them press junkets too. Mm-hmm. So you have a big record dropping. Let's say Sheck West has a new record, and he's in where's Sheck West? Where's he from?
New York.
Yeah, New York. So what they do is you fly journalists from Noisy or rest in peace, whatever's going on there. You fly, like Fader, like different places. You fly them out to New York for like a listening session in the studio, hang out, and then you get interview opportunities, 15 minutes per. But that's what they did back in the day. So me being attached to
they do that now, like Solange album. They did that for the Solange album, but it's only Solange is gonna do that now.
Yes, yeah.
Like it used to be. I feel like any rapper on any record label, there was budget to have all these people come and care about it.
100%.
Yeah.
It also brings, when we talk about the morality and ethics behind that, now here's the interesting thing around the reason I am as objective and neutral, right, unbiased, impartial as I am is because, formerly trained journalist, right? So what that means, and this is where things get controversial, is, I can call it as far as this sort of cronyism, nepotism, putting your friends on, which is fine. If they're putting in the work, put them on, But I guess one of my difficulties with the Toronto scene and the journalism scene, right, the media scene, is it's just people putting on their friends and ignoring. As a publicist, they're ignoring great music in favor of their friends. So
I saw something recently that people I think that a lot of entertainers or whoever are sort of misinformed that the media is not really just an extension of their publicist or their PR that they've hired.
Right.
Like these people are allowed to have opinions and allowed to have that's the whole point of
Yes. Yeah, totally. No, definitely.
That's the whole point of trying to create something like that that would communicate with other people.
Yes.
Is that people are going to have opinions about it.
Oh no, 100%.
You must have seen you also saw that tweet from Lizzo, right? That she was saying anybody that reviews music but that doesn't make music should be I saw a funny reply that was anybody that does review music is probably unemployed.
Right, facts. Big facts. No, even that again, I don't know if that's a new gen thing that I'm missing, but I don't agree with that at all. Because people that, we can deconstruct, people that review records and interview artists, they're studying the craft. They're just they're going to listen to Lizzo stuff and be like, yeah, that song, it's a great song, but it sounds just like something Jimi Hendrix did and whatever. And, you see what I mean, though? So they have this kind of encyclopedic knowledge, of music, and they're able to deconstruct and break it down to its, to its core. And there's a real skill and art to that. So I don't agree with that at all. But I will say this: when you fly out, here's it's a whole other conversation. But when you fly journalists out to put them up in 5-star hotels, feed them, they get a per diem. Sometimes first class. What do you think the review is going to sound like? Of the new whatever record, of the new Lizzo record? What do you think it's going to sound like? Can you slam it? Can you give it a 4 out of 10? Huh? Can you give it a 1 out of 5 when you got put up in a 5-star hotel by Universal Music? Yeah,
well, you're not, and if you do, you're not going to be invited back for the 5-star hotel and then the next album.
No, you will not. No, you will not. Yeah, back to the unemployment line. You're collecting EI. You know what I'm saying? EI in Toronto. Yeah, that's what happens. All right, so it's an interesting industry that way. And I've done some things where people. Yeah, I think even I reviewed Choclair's record. Because I put Canadians in the source. Chaos, did a piece on him, big spread. But Chauclair, I reviewed his record in The Source. And that was the first record out of Canada. Went gold, in 30 days, signed to Virgin EMI. So everybody's thinking because I'm a Toronto guy, people that know or saw my byline, there's like a Toronto guy, he's going to give it a great review because he's writing for The Source. So of course he's going to give it a great review. He's from Toronto. But I gave it, I think a 3 out of 5 because it was an okay record, but it wasn't like groundbreaking stuff.
But you still wanted to put on, put on for the Toronto record, but you didn't want to discredit your own credibility. You didn't want to
big time, yeah. And the record wasn't that great. Like it's an okay record, but it's not like a 4 out of 5 or like 5 out of 5. Nah, still mad. Like no, that's not what it is. So you take some heat for that. Journalists, they take heat for that, right? Just kind of being honest and being like, no, it's not a groundbreaking record. You know what I mean? It's an okay record. Good people, but yeah, you take a lot of heat for that.
How did you get to the point? Like, how did you get to the point where you knew you even were capable of writing a book? Because you've like written several books now, but how do you get to the point from writing like that's where I'm at now. I'm at like point where I've written like 1,500 word pieces or interviews with certain people, or like how do you get to the point where you think that you even have the credibility or whatever to like put that much on paper and like be like, oh, is someone actually gonna want to publish this?
Yeah, totally. So when you writers of yesteryear, when you wrote feature stories. Again, pay scales you had. So when you look at the New York Times, you look at any newspaper, Village Voice, and they did a profile on an artist, it's thousands of words, bro. It's not like 500 words, and some nice photography or whatever accompanying it or illustration. It's a lot of words. So if you look back then, those stories I'm writing, 1,800 easily on the low end, 3,000, like thousands of words. So if you can crank out feature stories thousands of words long, and you think about how many words go into a book, it's not a big stretch. Right, so some people now, this generation and the blogosphere, you're writing these little succinct, couple hundred words, 500 words. When we were writing features, it's like thousands of words. It's like essays, man, college, university essays, So that's what that was. The other thing too is, in Toronto, and there's some people that are they're always talking to me. There's like, yeah, I want to do books and all that, and some people from my generation, and they're just like. They're kind of out to lunch. They don't have the credibility that I do. Like I put in the work, bro. I also took a course at Centennial College. It's called Book and Magazine Publishing, and it's a 1-year fast track program. I went to York University, studied English literature. So I'm one of those guy words, like I can cite you, throw a word out there. I'm geeked out like that. Or if you say some word that I don't know, I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna low key look it up, and then it's gonna become a part of my vocabulary.
That's funny.
So I'm like a wordsmith that way. Like I'm on some geeked out craziness, but the idea is with books. Yeah, I took a program too called Book and Magazine Publishing at Centennial College in the late 90s. So I know the game inside out. Yeah, so I know how to sell books. I know how to get it to market, engage publishers. I know all that. I'm not just guy, I want to write a book.
Do you take that course before you wrote a book?
100%. 100%, yeah.
So you already had that mindset that you already wanted to make that kind of step, and you already were sort of making the little steps towards it.
100%. I studied the craft. I mean, there are two different ways you can look at it. Is Miles Davis, one of the greatest musicians and thinkers of our time, and there's some issues there around abuse for sure, gender, just not horrible stuff. But he always said like sometimes the best the best musicians are the ones, you have self-taught, let's say like you're an amazing photographer, right? Like you were just showing me some stuff like crazy stuff, filters, you know what I mean? Like, and you're just that guy. You're like a visual, you know what I mean? Like you're that dude, you know what I mean? And people in Toronto know that. So he said there's a self-taught photographer, right? They get a camera, a Nikon, whatever, and they start shooting. And the stuff is fire. Like it looks incredible. No formal training, didn't read any manuals or websites or apps or anything. They're just shooting, and it comes out. You have an artistic lens. Your point of view, your frame of references are very artistic by nature. Then you have others, all they do is study it. They do a 4-year degree in photography, 3 years community college, and their stuff is garbage. Or their stuff is fire, right? So I'm the guy, I believe, in taking little bits and pieces from both sides, right? Is that you're going to do the DIY, indie, self-taught stuff. You're going to mess around with your camera. You're going to mess around with words in this case as a writer. But also, I did that publishing program in English literature so that I had this kind of formal, this back, basically I can stick stuff in stories and literary devices and all that stuff. Is that a lot of writers, they say, yo, it's a great piece. It's just like, yeah, because I'm using the stuff I learned in school as well. This is also being a very raw, I just write ideas, just like I speak, stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
But I can sort of draw on sort of tools that I picked up from the masters, you know what I mean? Or that I read in some book as well. So I think sometimes some of the best, like Miles Davis always said that, the best jazz musicians, they're like, yeah, you could play the bass guitar or the upright bass, do whatever. That's great. And you can be amazing at it, 89%. But you see, if you take some stuff, you study the masters that had come before you, read a book, take a course, you're on some 100% type shit, you know? So that's kind of how I view the profession, you know? Yeah.
It's funny. I was like, I had to like make sure the date was correct. I was like looking at the release date for your book about Drake.
Yeah.
Far From Over, and that came out like a year before Nothing Was the Same came out.
Yes. Facts.
So like that was like 2012. Like that's 7 years ago now.
Yes. 100%.
And it's like probably worth noting that was the first book published like about Drake.
Yes.
And that's years before Drake has become this like global. I mean, he was like a global phenomenon in 2012, but not in the way that he's a global phenomenon in 2019.
That's right. Yeah. Part of our job as documentarians, whether, you know, photographers, visual artists, you know, certainly writers, is you're studying the zeitgeist. You know, you're like a futurist. Here's the word, a futurist, right? So you're able to see things before they happen. You know, predict, project, right? That's what a lot of, you know, in my practice as a publicist, PR strategist, is a lot of the artists I mess with, I kind of see who come to me through labels, or we just organically meet up somehow. I look at them, I'm like, you're a star. You're going to be a star in 2 years. Right? The long game. If we take the long game, you're going to be a star in 2 years. You have the je ne sais quoi. You have something happening here. You have a look, you have a sound, lyrics, like beats, whatever they may be, you know, boom bap to trap, like it doesn't matter. But so that I'm whatever I do, whether it's writing, publicity, I'm like a futurist. So I'm kind of messing with people. You may ignore my media releases now, but like a year from now, you're going to be like begging me to, you know, and I might decline that. And the people that mess with, you know, I like people that pick up the trends, you know, not when everybody else has, and it's just like totally commercial and mainstream. It's just, that's lazy to me, right? I mess with journalists who are like there, you know, you're at the shows like, Jazz Cartier, we did the show, you know, the Garrison, because I booked it, you know, and, you know, obviously he's publicist, and there's like, you know, there's nobody there. You know what I mean? Like, I know who was there, you know what I mean? Like, I could be, you know, like the guy, actually, Slava was there, the noisy guy, but there was people there, you know what I mean? Because I remember giving, you know, drink tickets, and there's nobody there. But the people that kind of said, yo, man, like, or came out some of the early shows, and they're just like, they're like, you know, sort of day one, they kind of got it. They're just like, this guy's nice, you know what I mean? And then not the people, you know, bandwagon, I don't really care for that. You know what I mean? I'm not so interested. I'm interested in people that are into the culture. They mess with you now. You know, the Drew Yorke, when stuff is thing, and then, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are calls you return. So that's how I process culture, you know? So with Drake, that's what it was. I just saw. Also, too, with Drake, what qualified me to write the biography is I had a relationship with ECW Press. We did a book about Much Music, the history of Much Music.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah. It's called Much Master T. And it's about a VJ there, Master T, legendary VJ at Much Music. And so he was the Don. He had interviewed everybody, you know, Lenny Kravitz, J-Lo, you know, Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys. Like, it just goes on and on. Dr. Dre, Eminem, Tupac Shakur's last interview. He's the guy that did it, television interview, you know? So it's just loaded.
I wish I had access to the Much Music archive.
Yeah, okay, we're going to talk after the Drew Yorke Show.
Right?
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to hook you up after Drew Yorke Show. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's what it is. Yeah, with Drake, the story is his whole situation there. You know, he's by like Forest Hill, for example. I grew up in this. You know, you see where the Little Jamaica is. It's close. It's a hop, skip, and a jump from Forest Hill. It's one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in all of Toronto. So I went to school on both sides of the track. So when people talk about Forest Hill, listen, I know that, man. I went to school in Forest Hill. You understand? West Prep. My kids go. You know what I mean? Like, so I know what's going on in Forest Hill, because there's this nice little, you know, neighborhood, right? That's, you know, like immigrants, and then it's next door to Forest Hill. So people, they jump back and forth. So when people say little rich kiddies, I know all that.
Yeah.
My son's drama teacher, he's not at Forest Hill now, but he, Drake's teachers, you know, that taught him in school, taught my kids. I got 2 teenagers, you know what I mean? 13, yeah. So that's how deep in the game. So when people talk all this Drake, they don't know what they're talking about. I know, because I'm like right there. You understand? Yeah. So I know all that stuff. It's not like a cliche or caricature. I know exactly. You know, you see what I'm saying, though, right? Yeah, I know all the connections that was made. Classmates, I know them, his classmates. You know, the Degrassi, when he was on the end, I know people, I know all of them. Because a lot of them came out of Forest Hill and went to Northern Secondary and stuff like that, right? So, yeah. So I really know the backstory, you know what I'm saying?
It's too bad. I feel like we could talk about, like...
Drake forever?
Yeah, we could talk about, like, forever.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you felt like, when writing that book, that you definitely got right about Drake, like thinking back now 7 years in the future?
Right.
That definitely got right, or something that you definitely didn't get right?
Right. I think the pieces, there were some people that were integral to his success in Toronto. I think I missed because it's hard to get. Drake was a hustler, so Drake was jumping around different parts of Vaughan Road and recording with all kinds of people, you know. And so there's some there's some cool stuff. We nailed it. You know that book? It's required reading. Like if you're into Drake, even remotely close. No, I don't need royalty checks. I don't care about that. I mean, get it at the library. Get it at the library, right? It's in public libraries. There's a lot of copies, and go read it because there's stuff in there, bro. Like his first deals, first management. His first, he used to send like fax, kind of saying, "Hey, I'm Drake. I sound like so and so." Like these, really innocent. Hit me up at Drake, whatever, at hotmail.com. This crazy stuff that I got in there. You know what I mean? Like of the grind, like the real story. And then also to culture too, because of this whole thing of him, being biracial, Jewish, and all that. So I get into that as well. Talk about, again, the culture thing. Like sort of the Jewish presence in rap and what parts work, what parts get put, there's pushback. And so I get into this really deep, like sort of academic-y intellectual stuff that I think people would appreciate, for sure.
Do you think there's anything that I guess you said you missed, people that maybe were part of it. Do you think there's anything that you didn't predict that is now like evident, like clearly? I mean, because people now, like, I didn't even know about Drake as much. Like, I wasn't really a Drake fan until Nothing Was the Same.
Yeah, right.
So for me, Drake is only Nothing Was the Same and past.
Right. Totally.
So do you think there's anything that that is evident about Drake now that maybe wasn't as evident back then?
Yeah, I think the book is called Far From Over: The Music and Life of Drake. I thought he'd be over by now. That's what I would say. Like, I thought he'd be over. To sustain, like Billboard chart-topping hits and, albums, mixtapes, playlists, whatever, because he's done all of the above.
Yeah.
And it's 2019, bro. Like, the book came out in 2012, and he'd already had some, hit records. So to sustain that, like most like rappers, you have a run. 5 years, you know what I mean? Like, you're not like this kind of like Snoop Dogg thing where you're like 20 years in the game. Like, nobody does that, or 30. Like, nobody does that.
Yeah.
So that's the part that shocks me more than anything, is that there's still a will for, people still want to hear him record new music. Like, 15 years later, like that's shocking to me.
20 shows at
2002. Yeah. Right. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. That doesn't. So that's
20 shows. Yeah. Sold out.
Yes.
In London.
Yeah. So that's something I couldn't quite compute.
Yeah.
I thought he would be done, and then we've since moved on and maybe messing around with somebody else from OVO, another like Drake 2.0, but not Drake. Like, he's older now. He's not like the sort of child looking whatever post Degrassi guy. Like, he's like an older dude now. Yeah. Right. He's gained a bit of weight. Like, it's not the same. You know what I mean? So I'm very surprised by that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's so funny.
Yeah.
It sucks. This has gone by so fast. I wish we could talk for like so much longer.
Yeah.
I usually finish these off by asking people to name off like 2 like must visit food spots from home. So maybe like you give me one spot from maybe like the city, but also one from like Eglinton West.
Okay, good. From Eglinton West, out there, the food, it's getting a bit sketchy right now. I mean, people say that, Randy's Patties is the best in Toronto. No, it is not. I grew up around there, and I live nearby there, no, it is not. Randy's, that's all hype and hoopla. That's like somebody coming to Toronto and being like, the greatest rapper is what and people here are like, no, they're not even close. Yeah. So Randy's is not the best patties in Toronto. You can quote me on that. I would say on Eglinton, oh boy, there's a place called the Entertainment Kitchen that people like to frequent. Mainsha. They used to have like $2 meals and all that. But it's okay there. Mainsha's not bad. Eglinton is a little weird right now for food. Eglinton is more like barbers now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you want to get a nice fade. Yeah, the food scene out there, it's not so great.
What about in the city then?
Yeah, in the city, boy, food. Oh, and I'm a food. Yeah, you know what I would say? I eat a lot of Ethiopian food. I like spicy food. I don't know if that's like the Jamaican in me, but so there's a restaurant, there's a vegan restaurant called Salam. I'm not vegan, like I eat chicken and fish, but Salam, Selam. That's a cool spot, sort of Ossington and Bloor neighborhood, and Lalabella. You probably heard of that, Lalabella, Ethiopian. I eat a lot of Ethiopian. I also like Pie Toronto. You know Pie?
No.
Okay, Pie. Yeah, it's like Thai cuisine. It's like dope. Shout out, Jeff Regular and the Pie crew, man. Like, Pie is just amazing. Like, it's right downtown. Yeah, PAI. Just look it up. But their Thai stuff is ridiculous. Like, you know what I mean? It's just so tasty and spicy and like, And try the grabang, as an appetizer. It's like this. It's like this squash. It's an appetizer squash. Yeah. So I'd say they're Pie, PAI. And what was the second one, Drew? What did I say? Oh, yeah, Lalabella and Salam. So Ethiopian and Thai.
Okay. Thank you for doing this, man.
All right, anytime, Drew.
Okay.
All right, respect.
Thank you for watching the Drew Yorke Show. Until next time.
That's it. All right, peace. That was good,
It went by fast, right?
Yeah.